Did you know that there are an estimated 10 to 20 missing nuclear weapons from the United States arsenal? Since the 50s, there have been at least 32 broken arrow incidents. Today, we are going to explore some of the most insane nuclear weapons mishaps in US history. The US military has certain terminology for nuclear weapon incidents. Most of the terms use the reporting flag word PINNACLE, which denotes an incident of interest to the major commands of the Department of Defense and the National Command Authority. If the incident generates a higher level of military action, causes a national reaction, or affects international relationships, it is flagged PINNACLE. Benspear. The designation given to incidents that involve nuclear weapons, warheads, components, or vehicles transporting nuclear material that are of significant interest but are nothing more than violations or breaches of handling and security regulations. One such case occurred in the distant year of 2007. Doesn't it feel that way? It's been over a decade. We're getting old, people. On August 29, 2007, 6 AGM-129 ACM cruise missiles, each loaded with a W-81 variable yield nuclear warheads, were mistakenly loaded onto a B-52H heavy bomber and transported from Minot Air Force Base in North Dakota to Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana. I guess someone had forgotten to remove the warheads before the missiles were transported. For 36 hours, no one knew that the warheads were never removed or that they were missing. After a swift investigation, it was concluded that the nuclear weapons handling standards and procedures had not been followed by numerous U.S. Air Force personnel. As a result, 4 U.S. Air Force commanders were relieved of their commands, and numerous other personnel were disciplined or decertified. It was such a big incident that the nuclear weapons operations in Minot Air Force Base were suspended, and the U.S. Air Force issued new nuclear weapons handling instructions and procedures. This is certainly the most famous and most recent incident that is considered a bent spear. Some people have a problem with that most recent part though. If you look at the 2014 incident involving $1.8 million in damages to a Minuteman III missile in Colorado that went unreported for some time, you might feel the same way too. It turns out the missile failed a diagnostic test and was rendered non-operational. Broken arrow. The next set of incidents we will look at are the more famous, or infamous, broken arrows. This might make you feel uneasy, but it is the world we live in. Number 3. The Thule Affair. Let's start with what is commonly referred to as the Thule Affair, and informally known as Dr. Freezelove and/or Project Crested Ice. On January 21, 1968, a U.S. Air Force B-52 bomber carrying 4 B-28 Fi thermonuclear bombs on a Chrome Dome alert mission — it's okay, it was the Cold War and every operation had to have a weird name — crashed. Shortly after refueling, a fire started inside the B-52 for possibly the silliest reason ever. One of the crew members had put cushions on top of a heating vent. They eventually ignited and things spiraled out of control very fast. After unsuccessfully trying to extinguish the fire, electrical power was lost, and there was too much smoke in the cockpit to operate the plane. The B-52 prepared for a crash landing at Thule Air Base, but it was too late. 6 of the crew members made it out alive, and the 7th was not so lucky. As the crew escaped, the plane pummeled towards the sea ice in North Star Bay. The conventional explosives aboard detonated on impact, and the nuclear payload ruptured and dispersed through the bay. The crash was officially designated a broken arrow. After numerous searches, one of the nukes is still missing, buried deep under the sea. In total, 70 U.S. government agencies and 700 workers were involved in the 9-month cleanup. More than 500,000 gallons of contaminated liquid were extracted at an estimated cost of about $66 million in today's money. Number 2. The Damascus Accident. The year was 1980. It was a cool September afternoon at Missile Complex 3747 in rural Arkansas. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, a U.S. Air Force LGM-25C Titan II ICBM loaded with a 9-megaton W-53 nuclear warhead had a liquid fuel explosion inside its silo. Well, it wasn't out of nowhere. 2 airmen were checking the pressure on the oxidizer tank of the missile. Due to time constraints when going into the silo, they took a socket wrench instead of the newly mandated torque wrench. The 8-pound socket for the oxidizer tank fell off the ratchet and dropped approximately 80 feet before bouncing and hitting the Titan II's first stage fuel tank, causing it to leak a cloud of Aerozine 50 fuel. So everyone was evacuated while military and civilian response teams arrived to deal with this mess of a situation. Early in the morning of September 19th, the next day, a 2-man investigation team was sent in. Even though their vapor detectors indicated an explosive atmosphere, they were ordered to turn on an exhaust fan inside. Possibly due to arcing in the exhaust fan, the hypergolic fuels exploded. The 740-ton silo door was catapulted away, along with the Titan II's second stage and warhead. The second stage exploded outside of the silo. The W-53 warhead landed about 30 feet from the launch complex's entry gate. Luckily, there was no loss of radioactive material or nuclear detonation because of safety features. So yeah, there you go. A socket wrench almost destroyed half of Arkansas. Number 1. The Carolina Incident. On March 11, 1958, a U.S. Air Force Boeing B-47 Stratojet was flying from Savannah, Georgia to the United Kingdom and then to North Africa as part of Operation Snow Flurry. Even though it was just a training exercise, the aircraft was carrying nuclear weapons in case a war with the Soviet Union broke out. Preparedness, people. Preparedness. During a check of a bomb harness locking pin that did not engage, Air Force Captain Earl Kohler, who was sent to fix the problem, reached around the bomb to pull himself up and accidentally grabbed the emergency release pin. The Mark VI nuclear bomb dropped and its weight forced the bomb bay doors open. Some 15,000 feet below was the city of Mars Bluff, South Carolina. 3 kids were playing around their playhouse in the woods. Before long, the bomb struck the playhouse, leaving a 70-foot wide, 35-foot deep crater. Fortunately, the nuclear core for the bomb was stored elsewhere on the plane. In total, there were 6 injured civilians and 7 damaged buildings. The U.S. Air Force was sued and paid out $54,000, which is about $478,000 in 2020. Pretty cheap, all things considered. Things didn't end there for the Carolinas. On January 23, 1961, a Boeing B-52 Stratofortress carrying 2 Mark 39 nuclear bombs was flying from Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in Goldsboro, North Carolina. During aerial refueling, the refueling crew noticed a fuel leak in the right wing of the plane. Ground control directed the aircraft to assume a holding pattern off the coast until the majority of the fuel was consumed. Things got a lot worse when the leak expanded. 37,000 pounds, or 17 tons, of fuel had been lost in 3 minutes. The crew was ordered to immediately return to Seymour Johnson Air Force Base. Sadly, the pilots lost control at 10,000 feet in the air. At 9,000 feet, the pilot in command ordered the crew to abandon the aircraft. At 2,000 feet, the gyrating aircraft broke up in the air, and the 2 Mark 39 thermonuclear bombs separated from it. One of the bombs, seen here, had 3 of its 4 arming mechanisms activated. A simple safety switch is the only reason Goldsboro, North Carolina exists today. The second nuke hit a muddy field at around 700 miles per hour and disintegrated without detonation. Dr. Jack Revelle, who was part of the cleanup response team, had this to say: "Until my death, I will never forget hearing my sergeant say, 'Lieutenant, we found the arm safe switch.' And I said, 'Great.' He said, 'Not great, it's on arm.'" Yep, that's right. The bomb was partially armed, and an unclosed high-voltage switch had prevented it from fully arming. Even though crews tried to get all parts of the second nuke, uncontrollable groundwater flooding prevented them from doing so. Instead, the US government bought the surrounding area and closed it off to the public. So that's the story of how both North Carolina and South Carolina were almost nuked. It really seems like pure luck that it didn't happen. Check out the featured comment below, subscribe for more World and Earth, and I'll see you in the next video.